Lessons of faith and life, biblical stories that transform the heart. The story of Joseph and his brothers. Joseph, one of Jacob's sons, was favored by his father, which stirred jealousy among his brothers. Out of envy, they sold him into slavery, and Joseph ended up in Egypt. Despite the hardships he faced, God was with him. Through a series of divinely orchestrated events, Joseph rose to power, becoming second in command in Egypt, and helped save the nation from famine. Years later, his brothers unknowingly came to him for food. Though they feared his retribution, Joseph forgave them and showed kindness. Sometimes, our most difficult trials are part of God's greater plan. Joseph's story teaches us about forgiveness and God's providence. God can transform pain and betrayal into blessings. Like Joseph, we are called to forgive those who hurt us and trust that God has a purpose for everything we endure. The story of David and Goliath. Young David, a shepherd, faced the Philistine giant Goliath, who terrified the army of Israel. While all the soldiers feared Goliath, David trusted that God would deliver him. Armed with only a sling and 5 stones, David struck down the giant with a single stone, proving that with God's help, even the impossible is achievable. David and Goliath's story reminds us that no matter how big our challenges may seem, God gives us the strength to overcome them. It's not about the size of the problem, but the size of our faith. The giants in our lives provide opportunities to display God's greatness. The Good Samaritan. A man was attacked by robbers and left half dead on the side of the road. As he lay there, both a priest and a Levite passed by without helping. However, a Samaritan, considered an enemy of the Jews, showed compassion. The Samaritan tended to his wounds, took him to safety, and paid for his care. This parable teaches us that love for our neighbor knows no boundaries of race, culture, or religion. Our neighbor is anyone in need, regardless of who they are. We are called to show mercy and compassion, even when it is inconvenient or difficult. True love for others is selfless and sacrificial. Moses and the burning bush. Moses, after fleeing Egypt, was living as a shepherd in the desert. One day he saw a bush that was on fire but did not burn up. As he approached, God spoke to him from the bush and called him to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. God often calls us when we least expect it and in the most ordinary places. This story reminds us that God sees potential in us, even when we don't see it in ourselves. Moses felt inadequate, yet God used him to accomplish great things. God can use our weaknesses for His purpose if we are willing to follow His call. The feeding of the 5,000. Jesus was preaching to a crowd of more than 5,000 people. As the day grew late, His disciples suggested sending the people away to find food. Instead, Jesus instructed them to feed the crowd. With only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, Jesus gave thanks and distributed the food. Miraculously, everyone ate, and 12 baskets of leftovers remained. This story shows us that God can do much with the little we offer. We may feel that we lack the resources or abilities, but when we give what we have to God, He can multiply it in amazing ways. Our willingness to give, no matter how small, can be used by God to bless many.